All right, we have so much to get to this time around, so let's just get to it. July 2023 Power Rankings coming at you. What happened this month? We had a whole bunch of things. Triad Wars 15 reached not the semifinals. I should have edited this before putting it up. Reached the finals. I edited lots of other pages. Balance of Power made. That's another typo. This is a great start to the video. We got to the icon section. We're in winners finals as well in losers bracket as fighting over 7th, 8th, and 5th, 6th. We're going to get the first new TTN icons. In general, I include things when they end, but I'm going to give a boost to people that are still in and doing well. Though the main balance of power scoring will come in when the tournament ends. And that's going to be a really important caveat to everything here because GBs took a break so SE Cosmos could occur. Um, we also have Triad Wars happening. That's in the finals. Again, that's not going to be included as a major part of this, but it will work as a sort of tiebreaker along with Cosmos. But it's not the main things I'm focusing on. That's three very big tournaments: Triad Wars, Balance of Power, and Cosmos. None of them finished, all quite close. Um, More typos here, Liston, but that's okay. What I wanted to say was I've been thinking about whether Cosmos and Kefka should be included as majors in my tourney stats. Someone brought it up, or I sort of mentioned something about it, and it came up, and I'm not sure what to do. I did the work to get the spreadsheets ready for its inclusion, and in a sec, we're going to look at reasons for or against including it, and I'd love to hear feedback on this because I really don't know which way to go. I've already put in the work to include it, so I'm kind of leaning include it because otherwise that's kind of a waste, but also not a big deal either way. Um, and I'm going to be referring to them as tour finals because they are tournaments qualified for by doing well throughout the year. And I think I forgot to edit the next sheet too with an idea, but we'll get to that in a moment. Man, continuing my streak of really poorly put together power rankings. The most important tournament of all, the Doom Train Memorial, also came to a close. We got three chat tournaments in 1 month, which is pretty remarkable. One of them was mostly done at the start of the month, but we've even started the next one. This was a very active month for weekly opens. And we also got two pairs of TTNGBs. Survivors approaching the end. Again, I'm going to fully include it at the end, but maybe give little pockets of credit here. And Fun Chaos does not await Smoke's winning by activity. Again, great job editing the first few pages of this. I put the rest together right at the end of the month, but this sheet I wrote up a little while ago, and I really should have edited it. Terrible job by me. Fun Chaos did end, and Sir Smokes did not win by activity. Stay tuned to see what happened. So, okay, should tour finals count as majors? Um, Here's some reasons it would be good to include or make sense to include. Similar to Rhinoa in reward structure, having a SE that you hold on to for a year or until the next tournament, and then there's some form of defending it, whether by competing in the next tournament or a title match, presumably competing in the next tournament for this one. And Rhinoas are included in my majors count and in my scoring systems. Year long qualification is a neat feature that kind of differentiates it from other tournaments. Each time we've done a kind of somewhat differentiated tournament, like Rhinoa, which was experimental and did various things like the team structure, and closed tournaments, they've all been under the SE banner. So we very much have kind of Triad Wars as the most traditional tournament, TTAC as the tournament that includes random open closed and closed as well as open, and SE has formats that are pure open and very similar to Triad Wars, but formats that are more experimental. And in general, this would fit in with if we were going to add new formats, it would likely land under the SE structure, and this naturally already does. Um, it also has this year long qualification that I think is a neat feature. It's a relatively short tournament, but you're playing over the course of a year to qualify for it. And I think that makes for a neat structure. Now, closed has been included in majors before, specifically SEs. Note this is an SE, both Cosmos and Kefka are SEs. But why not have a type of major that includes random? Best of three in Cosmos is a good format for closed random. Presumably, Kefka will be best of one, but I don't know how that's going to go. But either way, it would be a form of major that has random included, and we've never done that before. And if we were going to do it, it would probably, again, be under the SE type banner, and so this would be a very natural way to do it. And also, just in general, tour finals and other competitive sport like competitions are this huge event. And it would be neat to score these as majors, as this kind of here's the thing that takes a whole year of work to qualify for. You can get in not playing as many, but to get seeded, to get those extra spots, you had to compete, and it does have a seeding system. And you do put in that year of work, and you play in the tour finals, and if you win, that feels like a major. That feels like a huge event. So the core question, I think, is does it feel like a major, right? Because if it does feel like a major, it should be included. If it doesn't, even if it kind of fits in other ways, maybe it shouldn't be included, right? I think that's the core question at the heart of all of this is does this tournament feel like a major? Um, for reference, the majors I've done have been uh, all Triad Wars, um, all other SE events. So it would be a little weird if, SE Rhinoa was included, but this wasn't. There is a case for booting Rhinoa, but I think that is incorrect. Um, so all other SEs are included. I've included closed SEs. I've put them in a kind of special section, and they get a little lower weighting in the overall scores I give, depending on the score. Some they get full, some they get a little less. This would be in that category. Um, yeah, counts as like a full championship or a full quarterfinal. Counts a little less for some of the more advanced looks at who your opposition was and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I think fundamentally, if we are ever going to include random and majors, this would be as good a time as any to include it. You'd want it to have its own format. This has its own format. You'd probably want it to be under the SE banner. This would be under the SE banner. If you want randoms as majors, randoms in major tournaments, this is a really good way to do so. Reasons not to. Random tournaments have not been included as majors before. Of course, until something happens, it's never been done. But there's a reason random tournaments have not been included as majors. Until now, kind of everything except for second turn and, if in effect, elemental is sort of under your control, right? You picked your hand. If you have a hand that's just horrible going right and you auto lose, well, that was on you. That was your fault for picking a bad hand. Randoms, add this whole different element that's going to make it probably a less consistent format and maybe not the format for major tournaments. It's also much shorter than previous officials. The maximum number of rounds one can play is 4 rounds. We're currently in the finals, and both finalists are only going to play 3 rounds total, as they were both seeded. There were some 4 round tournaments towards the end of TTA's life, before the rebirth, and I think that was kind of a sign that tournaments were pretty dead, and they're obviously the least interesting of the tournaments that TTA ran. And those were often 4 rounds. Some were effectively fewer because there were so many activity wins. And having one that's consistently that short could be seen as a downside. Another thing is for obvious reasons, namely that it's qualified for, it can't draw extra players like other officials can, right? Whenever a major goes up, people like Slash of Time come out to play it. This kind of format, it wouldn't be possible to do that. Oh, I should say as another positive, it is a reward for people that are active throughout the year. And I think that is a really good thing to reward. Again, I didn't put this together as well as I should have. I'm really sorry. But a really important thing in Tour Finals' favor is rewarding people that play throughout the year is a really good thing. We really want to keep activity up. We all love and treasure this site and enjoy playing on it. And some kind of official thing that gives you credit for having competed throughout the year, I think is a really good thing. But yeah, the downside going along with that is it's not going to draw, it can't draw the kind of fields that other officials can. Another thing I think against it is, do we have enough site activity for 5 majors a year to make sense? Like, we have this kind of history and legacy of TTA, and sort of at the tournament peak, there were 5 or 6 majors a year. That's the most we ever had. And that obviously happened, that mostly happened between 2007 and 2010. And I think while that wasn't peak site activity, it was kind of peak tournament, not quite activity, but kind of tournament strength. So many of the big names are playing in exactly that period. Um, And in our times of reduced activity relatively, does it make sense to have five majors, to have five titles going out every year with such a reduced player pool? Or will that kind of muddy the legacy and history of this? And will I have to make too many adjustments to account for that? Um, Rather than right now, without this counting as a major, we have three majors a year. We have one SC, one Triad Wars, one TTAC. And this would bring us up to five with both Cosmos and Kefka. And another thing is just what counts as an icon. This isn't that big a deal, but round two is quarterfinals. Should round two be an icon? If you get seeded, do you automatically get an icon? That's very different than anything we've ever seen before. And while I think it would be reasonable to do, I don't have a particular problem with it. It is something we should figure out. And does that feel right for a major? Um, Now, also, it could get icons but not count as a major. That's definitely happened before. There's all kinds of stuff we could do. So I'm really curious where people stand on this. I was initially leaning towards no. Then I talked to a few people, and I'm now leaning towards yes, and set up my spreadsheet to do so. But I do think if people feel strongly, I'd like to hear people's opinions on this, and I am ready to be swayed. That said, let's move on to the actual top 10. Sorry for this digression. In 10th, we have Dalamar. There are a few people who made finals, specifically in chat tournaments, and Dalamar is a semifinals rather than a finals. And I do weight finals a lot higher because 1-1 is just one win. But he also came fourth in Survivor 2 with a nice run there, and the final three are really, really strong. And that made him the only person going for 10th that had kind of two results, two things to point at. I will note, because things like Triad Wars didn't finish, and because I have no other results than Triad Wars, because Cliffy has no other results than Triad Wars, people like that did not make this list, right? We will make it when Triad Wars finishes, but right now I was looking for people who had two results, and Dalamar had two, and the fourth in Survivor is a really good result. So 10th is Dalamar. In ninth, we have Selder, Fun Chaos semifinals, and he's still alive in Balance of Power. I could have had Dalamar ahead of Selder. I thought this was close. Also, the fact that he dropped out of Triad Wars in round two means we kind of, to some extent, don't know what would have happened. Obviously, not giving credit for going further than he did. But it's to say, I think he was a strong competitor in a bunch of events. Dalamar also made round two of Triad Wars, so this doesn't give him an edge against Dalamar, admittedly. Um, Ninth, we have Zelder. And then in very clear eighth, we have Sir Smokes with two finals runs, which would often be enough to get you around fifth, as well as an icon in Balance of Power. But our top seven, we had a lot of tournaments conclude, and it was really split who won them. And our top seven is just a really, really close field, and I could have done them in lots of different orders. And for my kind of yearly Player of the Year race, it means the people at the bottom of this end clearly played well enough to place higher, and the people at the top maybe weren't quite as dominant as some people in other months. So they had great months too. It's just a lot of people had really impressive months, which means somehow Yevon is coming seventh, despite coming second, third, and a fourth. He also got a third in another tournament, but with a score under 100, which is I'm not so impressed by. That would normally not place top four, but that's three top fours, arguably four top fours. He's also in Balance of Power winners finals. I didn't put it here, but he also made Cosmos semifinals. So when that comes in, he'll be getting more credit. Uh, just so many deep runs. Even if he doesn't get any titles, this is just a very strong month for Yevon, and this kind of resume could easily have come like fourth or third in another month. Yeah, we're going to be kind of nitpicky between a lot of people who had really good months. In sixth, we have Delial, who won Fun Chaos, which finally concluded, and came third in Doom Train Memorial. He's also quarterfinaling Triad Wars 15, finaling SE Cosmos. So he didn't play that much this month, but what he did play, he went deep in or won, and may go on to win Cosmos. So yeah, I could have had Yevon ahead of this. I could have had this higher. These are really good months. In fifth, we have Cool Spot, who won the Doom Train Memorial, which I wanted to give a lot of credit to, but the top four, I think, had even better months. Also got three more top fours, though one of them was kind of weird, so maybe two more top fours, plus a big win in a tournament lots of people competed in, and was a, the most serious tournament to happen. In fourth, we have Akiyama, who has 2 wins in a finals, as well as coming semifinals in Triad Wars 15 and seventh, eighth in Balance of Power. So he's iconed both the majors besides Cosmos, depending on if we call Cosmos a major, of course. But iconed both the TTA and the TTN major that's active, as well as winning 2 whole tournaments, and he only came fourth because we have a really strong month this month. In third, we have Vid, who also won 2 smaller tournaments, though amusingly, he won them in a row. The both TTM GBs this month he won, which is a nice streak. He also made semifinals in 2 different chat tournaments and came fifth in Doom Train Memorial. Normally, I wouldn't credit fifth, but this was a bigger field, and fifth through eighth had to play extra matches to fight for that fifth place spot, and Vid won it, and that definitely deserves credit. Also made icons in both TTA and TTN's major, and is still going in TTN's major. So just really good performances all around, as well as the 2 titles. Puts him, I think, just ahead of Akiyama. I was tempted to put Akiyama ahead because they played in Triad Wars 15 and Akiyama won. But I think overall, Vid's resume is still just a touch better this month. In second place, we have Ray Aminator, who also wins 2 events, a chat tournament as well as a TTNGB. He has a semis and a couple fourths, so that's 3 more top 4 finishes, 5 top 4 finishes total. If we compare to Vid, and we count Doom Train Memorial as a top 4, both of them have 5 top 4s, both of them have 2 titles. Vid has basically 2 quarterfinal finishes, one which he could still go further, though because of the way the losers bracket works, he has to win 2 more matches to make the semifinals, as compared to Reye being in Balance of Power winners finals, which means he is guaranteed to finish top 3, and assuming he's at 50% in each match remaining, he's about 37.5% to win the whole thing, if I'm doing my math right, which who knows if I am, and we're not going to take the time to think about it. And I thought that gave Reye the nod here. And our winner, of course, we know it's pronounced Ray, but we will refuse to pronounce it properly. Our winner for the month is Turds, who just finaled or runnered up basically everything. He only won 1 event, so you could argue him lower, but he also runner up to Doom Train Memorial and 3 different TTN events. That's 5 top 2 finishes, so only 1 win, but a ton of top 2 finishes. And he's in the finals of both Triad Wars 15 and Cosmos. I think if you look at this month and look at what happened here, it's hard to not think Turds is the player of the month. There is a case for other people. We have 3 other players that won 2 events, and Turds did not win 2 events. But I think the overall resume, it's hard to argue against this. I think he's winner by, a clear, not huge, but a clear margin. Again, being a finalist in Triad Wars 15 and Cosmos, most of that credit will go to next month. But even without that, 5 top 2 finishes, including in the Doom Train Memorial, which was the biggest event that finished this month, is already maybe number 1. And when you combine that with the deep runs in majors, yeah, I think it's clearly Turds. Our Player of the Year leaderboard, despite a relative off month, Dalial still wins an event and is unlucky to only reach 6th in this month's crowded field. He maintains his lead at 76. Given that a Player of the Month award is worth 15 points on this score, he'd have to skip a month and Reye win Player of the Month for that month to catch up. So Reye is still in it, and Turds is still in it, but Dalial's lead is pretty commanding. Turds was in 3rd entering the month, but gets a lot closer to being in 2nd, can really start pushing for that 2nd place spot. And it's a very good chance to, given as we saw, he's in finals of 2 events, though Reye is also in winners finals of an event. So they both have the chance, or are very likely to place really well next month as well. Akiyama stays in 4th with a very good month. Vid moves up to 5th, passing Sulder and Addy. Addy drops down to 7th. Sulder was kind of tied 6th, 7th, or maybe should have given an up arrow there. Anyway, whatever. Zoom is 8th, Kaus stays 9th, and Yevon, who had a relatively weak start of the year for him, has started to pick up points and is in 10th, and I think is favorite to finish top 8 by the end of the year, given his activity and general high level of play. He was really unlucky to only get seventh this month. He's in winners finals of Balance of Power, so he's likely to score well next month. Though next month, uh, everything might be taken over by majors results, and the results in smaller tournaments might end up not mattering so much, which would be a little bit of a shame that all the majors are ending at once. But what are you going to do? There's your leaderboard, and there's your player of the month scores for this month. And I guess the question is SE Cosmos and SE Kefka, are they majors? And I'm leaning towards yes. So if I don't hear from you, and this shouldn't be incentive to only send me your thoughts if you think the answer is no. Either way, I'd love to hear from people, but I would like to hear what you think. If I don't hear from people, it's going to be included as majors. My spreadsheet's ready to go. I've input some of the data, and we'll be ready to include it as majors. If so, Turds is on the precipice of his third and possibly fourth major if he wins both it and Triad Wars, or Delial might be the second person to ever reach seven majors won. So that would be exciting if included, but of course, there's a case for not including as well. Cheers.